Have you ever noticed how some people seem to feel the entire energy of a room without saying a word? They don't shout. They don't argue. They simply withdraw, and everything changes. People start to question themselves, chase them, miss them. The silence is louder than any argument. Now imagine if you did the same. Imagine if instead of reacting to everything instantly, you chose to pause. If instead of explaining yourself all the time, you simply chose to retreat, not to escape, but to protect your energy. What do you think would happen? Here's the truth. When you stop being emotionally, physically, and mentally available to everyone, the world around you gets shaken. Why? Because people have gotten used to influencing you through your reactions. You need to respond, to defend, to explain. But the day you stop reacting on command, the dynamic flips. Subtly, the control they thought they had over you disappears. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." So think about this. When you become unavailable, who panics? Who tries harder to provoke you just to get a reaction? Who accuses you of changing? Their reaction says more about them than it does about you. And it reveals something critical. That maybe, just maybe, you've been manipulated for far longer than you thought. Through guilt, through expectations, through your own habit of being too available. You say yes when you're tired. You reply to texts you don't want to answer. You engage in conversations that leave you drained. You hold on to people who, if we're being honest, were never truly there for you in the first place. And at the end of the day, you're left with frustration, exhaustion, and that hollow feeling you can't quite explain. Why? Because you're offering yourself, your energy, your presence, your emotions, to people who don't even deserve a minute of your silence. This isn't about turning your back on the world. It's about turning inward, about choosing yourself. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole, of becoming who you really are. And that journey, it starts when you stop trying to be everything for everyone. Silence, when it comes from awareness, not fear, is powerful. It's a statement, a boundary, a shift in how you use your energy. So let me ask you this directly. How long will you let others control you by pressing your emotional buttons? How long will you keep reacting like a puppet every time someone pokes at you once? It's time to cut those strings, to stop being predictable, to become a mystery. Because when you're no longer emotionally available on demand, everything begins to shift. You've been taught that being available all the time is a good thing, that it makes you lovable, reliable, worthy. But here's the truth most people never say out loud. Being too available is not a virtue. It's a trap. And the more accessible you are to everyone, the more they start seeing you as a tool, not a person. Someone to use when convenient and forget when they're done. They don't value your presence. They rely on your predictability. You become their emotional emergency button. Press, get comfort, put it away, repeat, and you keep showing up because you think if you're there for them, eventually someone will be there for you. But it doesn't work like that. Carl Jung talked about the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted and loved. And that mask, it's keeping you stuck. It's the reason you say, "I'm fine," when you're falling apart. The reason you justify yourself, defend yourself, explain yourself, over and over. But here's the cost. The more you center your life around others, the more you disappear from your own life. Being constantly available is a subtle thing of self-abandonment. You're not doing it out of love, you're doing it out of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, fear of losing people who were never really yours to begin with. And every time you give in, every time you react, you give away more of your power, more of your energy. And suddenly, you're exhausted, anxious, burned out. Because you forgot something crucial. Your energy is not unlimited. It's not free, and not everyone deserves access to it. In the next part, we're going deeper. We're going to talk about psychic energy, a concept Jung believes was central to everything. Why you feel drained, why you keep reacting, why certain people trigger you, and how you can finally take your energy back. Stick around. You're going to want to hear this. Have you ever noticed how tired you feel after dealing with certain people? Not physically tired, but emotionally drained, like your spirit has been stretched too thin. That's not by accident. Carl Jung didn't see the psyche as just thoughts and feelings bouncing around. He saw it as an energy system. Every emotion, every reaction, every interaction consumes a bit of that energy. And here's the question. Are you choosing where your energy goes? Or are you just leaving it out to anyone who pulls at your strings? Let's break it down. Every time you feel the need to explain yourself to someone who doesn't even deserve the explanation, you're draining energy. When you get into pointless debates, argue just to prove your worth, or jump into someone else's emotional storm trying to fix them, that's your energy bleeding away into situations that give you nothing back. And that's the trap. That's how people stay emotionally exhausted without realizing it. But here's what Jung said: what you resist persists. The more you fight, the more you explain, the more you react, the tighter the loop becomes. You keep spinning inside someone else's emotional narrative while your own needs fall silent. It's not about weakness. Emotionally exhausted people aren't weak. They're just giving their energy away unconsciously. And that unconscious generosity, it makes you vulnerable. You start to attract people who thrive on that vulnerability. Manipulators, energy vampires, emotional opportunists. They sense when you're too available. They watch how you react to guilt, to chaos, to flattery, and they feed off it. Not because they're monsters, but because they've learned how to control without force. They just press the buttons you've left unburdened. Jung believed a healthy mind knows how to conserve its energy, how to hold it inside the system instead of spilling it everywhere. That means learning to say no without guilt. It means holding your silence, not because you're passive, but because you're intentional. It's about seeing clearly before acting emotionally. That's not suppression. That's maturity. That's emotional power. Think about it. How many nights have you lost sleep over a conversation you never finished? How often do you replay arguments, thinking of what you should have said, or obsessing over someone else's treatment of you? That's psychic energy going nowhere. You're stuck feeding memories and relationships that take, but never give. And if you don't take your energy back, you'll keep doing it. Again and again. Psychic energy, when managed, becomes presence. You walk into a room and you don't have to speak. People feel it. You don't need to argue. Your energy holds the line. But when you let it leak through constant reactions, explanations, justifications, you fade. You become invisible in your own life. So how do you fix this? Start by becoming a student of your own triggers. Notice what pulls you out of center. What makes you respond without thinking. Those are the exact places where your power escapes. That's where the real work begins. And no, the goal isn't to become distant or heartless. The goal is to become sober. To make your reactions a choice, not a reflex. And here's one of Jung's biggest insights. The moment you stop reacting, people lose the projection they've placed on you. You stop being the version of you that they created in their minds. And that terrifies people. Because when you break their image of you, they're forced to confront themselves. And not everyone is ready for that kind of mirror. Next, we're going deeper into the hidden dang of emotional manipulation, the silent kind. The kind that doesn't shout or fight. It just feeds off your reactions. In the next part, you'll learn how your unavailability completely disowns these emotional tactics and what to do when people try to pull you back into your old patterns. Here's the truth most people never tell you. Being emotionally unavailable isn't always a trauma response. Sometimes it's wisdom. Sometimes it's survival. And sometimes it's the only way to reclaim your power from a world that keeps trying to pull it out of you. Let's make something clear. We're not talking about the toxic, avoidant kind of emotional unavailability, the kind that builds walls to hide fear. No, we're talking about conscious unavailability, intentional detachment, the kind that says, I don't know you my reaction. I don't know you my presence. I don't know you my energy just because you want it. When you become emotionally unavailable by choice, you become unmanageable. You're no longer reactive, so manipulators can't get a read on you. You don't feed their need for control. You don't fuel the drama they survive on. You stop giving free access to the deepest parts of yourself. And in doing so, you become unpredictable. That's power. Carl Jung knew this. He called it withdrawing the projection. When you stop reacting, people can no longer project their expectations, guilt, or insecurities onto you. The ding breaks. Because the ding needs your participation. It needs your anger, your tears, your arguments, your need for validation. When you remove that, when you go emotionally silent, all that's left is their reflection staring back at them. And most people can't handle that level of exposure. Here's what happens when you become emotionally unavailable in the right way. People will accuse you of being cold. Good. That means they can no longer manipulate your worth. You'll be called selfish. Let them say it. That means you've stopped overgiving. They'll say you've changed. That's the point. You have. You start choosing peace over proving your point. You stop needing to explain your boundaries. You stop siphoning your truth to keep others comfortable. That's emotional discipline. That's the grown-up version of love. Not just toward others, but toward yourself. And guess what? That level of unavailability makes you magnetic. Because you're not desperate. You're not seeking approval. You're not leaking energy. You're stable, in control, grounded. And that kind of presence is rare. Here's a harsh truth. The more available you are to everyone, the less valuable your presence becomes. Not because you're not worthy, but because people stop seeing your time, attention, and care as sacred. They treat it like it's infinite, like you're always on call. And that's not their fault. That's the energy you've trained them to expect. So what do? You pull back, quietly. No drama, no big exit speech. You just stop explaining. You stop justifying. You let your silence say what your words never could. And then, you protect your peace like it's the last currency you have. Because it is. In the next part, we're going to talk about emotional mirroring, how to flip manipulative dynamics without saying a word, and how your stillness becomes the exact thing that exposes someone else's chaos. There's a moment in every power dynamic when words stop working. You've explained, you've clarified, you've even begged, and yet, nothing changes. That's when you stop talking and start mirroring. What is emotional mirroring? It's not pretending. It's not playing games. It's not manipulation. It's exposure by reflection. It's when you hold up a clean, silent mirror and let the other person see exactly what they've been projecting without you ever having to say a word. Here's how it works. When someone is inconsistent, you stop chasing clarity. You become inconsistent too, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. When someone withholds affection, you stop offering yours first. You match the level of presence they bring and not announce more. When someone gaslights you, you stop arguing. You stop defending your truth. You just let their contradictions stack up in the silence, and eventually, they unravel themselves. You don't fix. You don't explain. You don't try to rescue the connection. You become the mirror. Why does this work? Because people are most disturbed when they can't get a reaction out of you. Especially manipulative or narcissistic personalities. They thrive on your response. Your anger feeds their sense of importance. Your pain validates their control. Your constant effort keeps the illusion alive. But when you mirror, when you become still, neutral, and unbothered, you remove the fuel. And suddenly, they're left with themselves. And most people can't survive in the presence of their own reflection. Here's the kicker. Mirroring doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start responding from power rather than from wounding. It means your actions are calculated, not emotional. It means you've stepped out of the storm, and you're now watching from the shore. And from that vantage point, everything becomes clear. Who only loved you when you were easy to control? Who only stayed when you overextended? Who only respected you when you abandoned yourself? Mirroring reveals all of it. And no, not everyone will like the mirror. Some will rage against it. Some will accuse you of being fake, cold, or passive-aggressive. That's fine. Let them react. Let them show you who they are. Because your job is not to fix the distortion in others. Your job is to remove yourself from the funhouse entirely and live in the truth of your own reflection. In the next part, we're going to talk about the art of strategic silence, how saying nothing can shift power faster than any confrontation ever could. You're not withdrawing. You're ascending. Stay with me.